My next guest is going to be taking on DeAnna Bennett in her Bellator debut. She's going to be fighting on September 12th at Bellator 246. It is Liz Carmouche joining me here on the program yet again. Liz, how's it going?
Great. How are you?
I am doing well, but I'm not fighting for Bellator in a few weeks. Congratulations. Big deal getting a fight for them. I know they're really working on their flyweight division. Tell me how this all came together once you parted ways with the UFC.
Yeah, it was actually something that I was trying to work out even before I got cut from the UFC. I just felt like I wasn't getting booked for fights, like it was really difficult. Like I was getting one, maximum 2 fights a year, and that really wasn't the tempo that I wanted to maintain. And so I discussed the possibility of moving to Bellator. And at the time, they're like, well, like 145 makes more sense. And I'm like, I walk around under 145. That I couldn't possibly do 145. They're like, we can book you for a fight right away. So it wasn't lining up. And it just happened chance that we were talking to a few different organizations when I got cut. And Bellator was like, yeah, actually 125 makes perfect sense. We can definitely fit you in there, and we'd love to have you.
How surprised were you that they wanted you to fight at featherweight? That's crazy.
I think people think I'm bigger than I am, and then because I fought at 135 and I fought some of the females that were at 135 that moved back up to 145, that people just assumed that that's a weight class I could do. But I'm super short and tiny. Like even at 135, I walked on the scale. I never had to cut weight for 135.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. And the whole release with the UFC was a little bit weird. Like, walk me back to this for a second, because this is my understanding of it, and tell me if I'm wrong here. So the UFC invited you out to do sort of like a guest thing, like they get guest fighters to come out to events. And then you found out sort of mid-tour that they were releasing you. Is that accurate, or was the tour over and then they're like, hey, we're getting rid of you? Like what happened there? Take me through that.
Yeah, no, I was mid-tour doing a PR thing for them. I was at a hospital on a cancer ward when I found out. And, just somebody says something like, hey, is everything good with you? So I'm like, what? And then my manager was like, yeah, so it turns out they cut you. They didn't talk to their PR team that invited you out, but the heads up did. So, yeah, so I'm out there. I took off a week from work, so I lost out all that money from work. Here I am, and they're telling me, don't worry, we're going to get you booked for a fight. And I'm like, man, it's been a long time, and I still haven't got booked for a fight. Should be hearing word. Otherwise I would have been staying ready. And so not only did I take a week off of work, but I'm out there for their PR deal at a hospital trying to talk to people and everything, only to find out on the drive back to the hotel when I'm about to go to another event that had actually been cut from the UFC.
It's crazy. And then, I'm sure you're a little bit surprised too, because of all the work you put in with the UFC. I mean, having the first title fight with Ronda Rousey, like there's so many things that you've done for the organization to kind of leave on those terms. Did that surprise you a bit just with everything you put in? I know they're a business, but still, it's got to be a little class in there, right?
Yeah, yes and no. I think that with the old ownership, that I would have been surprised if the old ownership had done that. With the new one, I felt like there was never really connection with the higher ups. So maybe that was where that disconnect came from. And more I was hearing about things that they were taking away from the fighters' opportunities, like even things like UFC TV, so we could study tape on opponents. It cost them nothing. They stripped all the fighters of that. So things that were happening, and them discussing like not even offering our out-of-pocket health insurance that we have to pay a deposit down for it, that they were going to remove that too. So just more and more things were happening where the situations where a fighter would lose one fight or even win a fight and it wasn't the way they wanted it to go, so they cut him. So I was not really surprised just in how difficult it was for me to get booked fights, and then how they were treating the fighters. It was like, yeah, you did me wrong, but I'm not really surprised.
Now, you said you were talking to the UFC about potentially going to Bellator, even before you guys had decided to part ways. What was the conversation like with your teammate, Ilima-Lei Macfarlane? Because I know now you guys have sort of said, hey, look, if we're fighting for the title, But what was that like initially? Because I'm sure that put you in kind of an awkward spot with her being the champion.
No, not at all. It's something that we've talked about for a while. I mean, as she was coming up the ranks in Bellator and she had the belt, I'd asked her, like, hey, if you had a chance and the UFC gave you a call, would you want to fight for the UFC? And she's like, no, never. Bellator treats me great. I see how they treat you guys. I don't have anything to do with the UFC. No way. And I was like, all right, you have a good point. I'm like, well, what if I came to Bellator? She's like, yeah, I'd fight you in a heartbeat. It'd be a great fight. Absolutely. And we've competed in jiu-jitsu tournaments together. And time and time again, our coach is like, okay, if you guys end up and you're in the finals or semifinals at any point, you guys either need to tell them that you're not going to compete against each other or you're going to equally tap out. And we're like, okay. And then we go behind our coach, like, we're not doing that, right? Like, we're going to go as hard as we possibly could. More so with anybody, it's going to be each other. So it's always been the discussion that if we face up for any reason, then we're going to give it everything we have.
How long ago was that conversation that you had with her? Like initially when you're like, hey, I'm thinking of maybe going to Bellator. Like how long ago was that?
I want to say a few fights after she was the champion when we discussed because we always corner each other for fights.
Right.
And so it was one of them where she had maybe her second fight as a champion defending it. And we were out there and I'd asked her like, hey, if they gave you a call, and then discussed like, yeah, well, what if I moved over to Bellator? Like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Well, glad to see you have a new home. I mean, they're doing a great job with that division. Alima Lay's done an awesome job too, sort of, being at the top. And you're fighting DeAnna Bennett, who's a pretty familiar name. Has fought in Invicta, was on the Ultimate Fighter. Were you a bit surprised? And the only reason I say that is because she's coming off a loss. Typically, Bellator doesn't take fighters off a loss. But what were your thoughts when they told you you'd be fighting her?
No, I wasn't really surprised just because I'm also coming off a loss. My last fight was Valentina Shevchenko, and I haven't been able to get booked for a fight since then. So it really, to me, kind of makes sense for both of us to be paired up, being the experience that we have, both at the loss to prove our chance and opportunity in Bellator.
Excellent. Okay. Well, now that you know that you're fighting her, how do you feel like you match up against her here? I mean, you guys both have a lot of experience, which is kind of makes this a really cool debut for both of you.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. Like you said, we both have almost equal amount of experience when it comes in terms of fighting. If anything, she has a little bit more on me just because she does have that wrestling background for her whole life. So I think that's going to be really good because I love having an opportunity to go against a good wrestler and to always test myself there. And then her striking is unorthodox. She switches stances. So that's a lot of fun for me to challenge myself in a new way and to see everything that I have to offer and show off new things I've learned.
How has COVID-19 impacted your training camp?
It has been really difficult. I mean, the first fight that I was originally booked with the Bellator was supposed to be main event. I was supposed to fight at the end of May. I was super excited. I was ready for it. I mean, I was 2 weeks out from the fight, set to go, and I get the call, and I'm like, I don't know, something's not adding up here. Get the call from Bellator. Hey, we're sorry, but COVID, everything's cut off. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So I kind of dialed it back for a little bit, relaxed. I mean, the gyms were closed anyway, so it's not like I was doing a lot of just garage training, make my wife hold pads for me. She was an amateur MMA fighter. And she wrestled and done striking stuff. So I was like, hey, can you hold pads? Hey, can we do this drill on the ground? Hey, can we do this? She's like, I don't want to be your training partner anymore. It's like she got like a good 2-week break. And then just that we saw like things starting to open up for other organizations. Like, okay, well, I need to stay ready on the off chance that I get a phone call. But trying to find opportunities and find training partners. A lot of people went home to help their families because they were going through hard times during COVID. So we lost a lot of training partners for that. Or people that just didn't want to put themselves at risk. So it was really difficult to find people and then kind of find places to train because the gyms were closed and we weren't allowed to open them up legally without the cops coming through threatening to close us and arrest us.
Yeah, that's nuts, especially in California. I know they're very sort of strict on that stuff. So you say you've had a pretty good camp, though, leading into this, just everything considered?
Yeah, there's been quite a few training partners able to come through and be like, hey, if you want me to meet you at a park, you want to meet you in your garage, in your house, like we'll throw down pillows, put cushions on the ground. We'll do anything it takes to help out. So everybody's kind of come through the works and had great training partners who were able to help me in preparation for this fight.
How's the weight cut going? I know you live a pretty healthy lifestyle, but I know even during COVID, it's sometimes tougher to eat and you're not as training as much as I'm sure you'd like to. Is the cut going well ahead of this fight?
Oh, no, the cut's even ahead of schedule than what I expected. I think, like I said, in that preparation, I mean, essentially I've been in a 6-month fight camp. I took off 2 weeks from the previous one and then went right into another one. So as a result, I've actually had to struggle to keep my weight up in preparation for this fight and not be too close to 125.
Interesting. Okay, that's cool. And you mentioned, your Alima Lay being in your corner. I imagine she'll be there for this fight, or how's your corner situation for this one?
No, because of the whole COVID restrictions, she's going to be cornering Ashley Cummins for her Invicta championship fight.
That's right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so she's going to be out there. So it's going to be a different setup for this one. Then we also have some other fighters. So everybody's kind of spread thin from the 10th Planet side as far as going into it. But I'm going to have 2 of my coaches from the arena. They're going to come out to corner.
Very cool. How's this fight playing out? Again, I think this has got potential fight of the night with both of you kind of going together because it's just, like I said, a lot of experience coming into this matchup. Yeah,
I think so too. Like I said, she has a wrestling background, but she also has a lot of experience and growth since then. And watching all the tape, she adapts and she grows every single fight more and more. So it's something I'm looking forward to, especially as a veteran with equal amount of fights. This is a good fight and a good opportunity for us to both showcase why we're veterans and why we do what we do.
Have you been told sort of the implications of this in terms of the winner? I know you're not looking past DeAnna there, but have they told you like how close you potentially could be to fighting your teammate for the title?
Yeah, I have heard rumors just strictly for the sole sense that because of the COVID restrictions, that a lot of that our 125 division is actually, they're made from outside the United States. There's a very limited amount that come from that you can tap into that are in the U.S., and Alima's already fought all the ones that are U.S. bound. So she's having a really hard time with the restrictions to get anybody from outside the country to possibly face her. Same thing with my original opponent. So there's a possibility that the winner takes on Alima, but she's potentially fighting in November. So I imagine, knowing Alima, it would be 6 months prior or after that I would possibly be able to be fight to the belt. And my biggest thing is Bellator is a whole new organization. I'm treating it as though this is my entry into it. I'm ranked to nothing. Let's work our way back up to the top. Now, if there's an opportunity for the championship, I prepare as if every fight is a championship fight. So if that means the next one is, great, I'm ready for it. If not, that's fine, because I respect that other people have been there longer and they deserve to go ahead of me.
What would you guys do in that situation? Would you guys train at different times at the same gym, or would you go somewhere else, or how would that work? I'm sure you've talked about that, because obviously it's a hypothetical right now.
Yeah, we talked about it before, and I mean, even like we both help each other when it comes to fights and Shark Tanks, and be like, hey, I'm sorry I have to do this to you, but this is what's going to happen. And the reality is like our toughest matches are against each other in the gym. So to some extent, yeah, we're going to have to separate from each other. But I mean, when we have certain classes and everything, if it just means that we don't go live with each other, but we're still in the same room, we're still in the same room. You know, we're still sister wives, we're still friends at the end of the day. And of course, we're going to have different coaches, and it's going to be a weird thing for, if anything, like when they talk about like, this is super weird for us, even less so than it is for us. Like, what is? It's fine. You're like, you go on this side, you go on this side. You guys want to switch between rounds? Switch between rounds. We don't care. Like, we're going to go in there and like, can we just like sit outside the cage? Like, our coaches are more weirded out by the idea than we are. We're ready to just go in there. We've known that this is a possibility for a long time, and it was really just about when it was going to happen.
I'm looking forward to this fight. It's coming up here September 12th. It is Bellator 246. Liz, always great catching up with you. Glad to see you found a new home. Just remind people where they can find you on social media. And if you have any sponsors or shout outs, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, so on social media, you can find me on Twitter and also on Instagram as I am Gorilla. On Facebook, it's Liz Carmouche Official. And then as far as sponsors, want to give a special shout out to Holistic Hyperbaric Chambers and Drink HRW.